Cheryl called the meeting.
I did, so we
I
can
will
do a roll call.
Daniel Bearwall. Diane Bailey. Stephen Booker.
Present.
Michael Thompson.
Here.
Kathleen Goforth. Here. Melee Kamuli.
Present.
Aurelio Pisa. Gail Lee. Here. Jason Mendelson.
Present.
Cheryl Schaff.
Here.
Desiree Fair. Here. Robert Whitehair.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Great. Would any member of the public like to make a public comment on matters that are not listed on our agenda? Vanessa, will any public folks show up right there at the bottom?
No,
No.
but I'm monitoring the,
Okay. All right.
and I don't see any raised hand.
All right. Thank you. All right, then our first action of business will be to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda items. Is there any discussion from committee members about our agenda for tonight? All right, then I will entertain a motion from someone to accept our agenda. Thank you, Michael.
Sure.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, great. Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's have Melee be the second thing. I guess you guys said it at the same time. All right.
Daniel Bearwall. Diane Bailey. Here.
Well, you're voting to approve the minutes.
Can I
also be here?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For the record, she's here and she's approving.
Stephen Booker.
He
He is here. Have you stepped to the rest?
Yeah.
Circles.
Michael Clausen.
Approve.
Kathleen Goforth.
Approve.
Melee Kamuli.
Approve.
Aurelio Pisa.
Approve.
Gail Lee.
Approve.
Jason Mendelson. Cheryl Schaff.
Approve.
Desiree Fair. Robert Whitehair.
Approve.
Stephen Booker.
The minutes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you, Vanessa. All right. I think we're going to have a very quick, easy question to kind of bring everybody into the room tonight. The question for this evening is, who is one of your climate or environmental superheroes? Somebody who's you always listen to if they're making a statement in the media, or whose books or articles you read, or maybe if they appeared in the Bay Area, you'd go. So
can I go first?
you can.
Just so no one takes my answer.
Yes, Stephen.
I'm gonna say Senator Beth Becker. Yep, got that one. Thank you. Done. Oh.
Wonderful.
That's my guy.
That's a good. That's a good start. So why don't we go to the right and Kathleen, you share someone?
A person didn't come to mind, but an organization did. The Woodwell Climate Research Center is one of the places that I go to.
Woodrow?
Woodwell, yes.
Okay.
It's almost Woods Hole, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Founded by George Woodwell, who was one of the first people to try to call attention to the climate crisis. Testified to Congress back in the 70s, I think, late 70s.
Would you say the name of the organization again?
Woodwell, WOODWELL.
Woodwell what?
Climate Research Center, I think.
Climate Research Center. Okay, great. Okay, Diane, do you have, anybody come to mind?
Lots of people swirling. I think I want to say James Hansen, who brought the issue of climate to US Congress, I don't know, a million years ago. When?
Yeah.
The 70s, the 80s, 1980.
Good ones. All right, Gail.
Well, I'm thinking of the Climate Reality Project.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so you're gonna use an organization.
Yeah.
You don't want to use Al Gore?
Well, I could use Al.
Okay.
But I like the idea that he's, I like the idea that he's our youth to be the driving force.
Yeah. By the way, if anybody wants to go, there's a training for climate reality in Rome next month.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Is PC sponsoring that?
I'd be going if it were. That's a good one. Okay, Robert, how about you?
One by the name of Michael Dowd, who writes about hope and the environmental movement. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple months ago, but just look him up on YouTube. Yes, it's just fantastic.
DOWD?
DOWD, Michael Dowd.
That's all right. What about you?
So from I guess a little different perspective for conservation, Jane Goodall.
Oh. Very good. All right, Michael?
I have two, John Muir. Who got us all thinking about these issues a long time ago. And then David Brower, who was the guy who really put the Sierra Club on the map. And he was my mentor. I worked closely with him in the 1980s. Yeah.
You're
Long
so
time.
smart. Really, can you think of somebody who's your superhero?
Chase and Kate, they're working very hard in CRC, community, resilient community in Palo Alto.
Danny was not online.
He's not online. Okay, how about you, Vanessa?
Oh, there's so many great local organizations. One that comes to mind is more on the national stage as a climate reporter is Amy Westervelt. And she really brought to light the fossil fuel industry and the ways that they are working behind the scenes to influence policy and education and all sorts of things.
Kirsten, do you want to chime in?
Sure, and my apologies, I'm not there and in person. I've got some COVID, but it's not so bad. And my environmental superheroes are all of you. And the ways that you show up and as advocates and volunteers and support this organization.
Great. Well, we all feel loved now. Mine is a guy named Jim Untitled, and Jim he actually participated in the first Earth Day. He was a friend and fellow jailed person after protesting with Bill McKibben decades ago, and he's a pastor, an ordained minister, and he's an advisor to the National United Church of Christ, and he's an incredible speaker, and he's really motivating for people of any faith. He's a great guy. Okay, Jason.
Well, Kirsten, I was gonna say what Kirsten said. I was actually gonna, but I got another one, which is my second person, would be Debbie Mendelson, who's my mother, who has won the National Arbor Day Award, was the first environmental champion of Woodside, started their Earth Fair, and forced me at the age of 5 to start volunteering and doing all this stuff against my will, till I was brainwashed, converting to do what she does, which is to give her life to please. She has done. She also leads the Sudden Oak Death Blitz for the local area and has done that throughout the country, throughout California, and has tirelessly done that forever. And I always try to aspire to be as into it and as dedicated and as passionate as she has been. But I think she is both directly for me as my mother, and then also what she's done for the community has been my role model for all of this, for more than my lifetime. So that would be my opinion.
That's great.
That explains a lot. Wonderful.
Well, I agree with Kristen, but more importantly, I was thinking the first person that came to my mind was Robert, and how much I'm learning so much from him and how he's such an advocate and all of that. So I appreciate that. Yes.
Can I go against such a easy one?
Sure.
Rest in peace, Pete McCloskey.
So true. Yes.
I'm gonna listen to my elder down.
That's the question you like, Steve.
Yeah. All of it. Yeah.
So many props.
Pretty dope.
Okay, well, let's get to our next order of business, which will be a presentation by Leslie Brown on the customer call center plan. Please join us, Leslie.
Hi, thank you. Leslie Brown, Director of Account Services. Oh, wait, do we have are you running the slides? Okay, yeah. And I'm here to talk a little bit about our proposal that we're bringing to the board to transition the staffing for our contact center to be in-house. Our current solution is an outsourced solution overseen by our data management and billing provider, Calpine. Can you go to the next slide? And so tonight, just gonna go over a little bit about what the current solution looks like, you know, what the new solution is gonna look like, some of the analysis we went through with our peer agencies that have taken this step, what our proposed implementation timeline is, and then the recommendations, what we're asking for from the group here as a recommendation. And then happy to answer whatever questions. I do have also on the line with us Stephanie Elmore, who's been working with us the last few months and helping to develop this plan. She's working with us currently under a consulting arrangement. But she's got a lot of experience with contact centers. She's been working in that field for over 10 years. And our plan ideally is, if we move forward with the board and they give us the green light, is that she would transition to be our manager for the contact center. So have Stephanie online as well if any folks have any questions for her. So let's go to the next slide. So this is kind of where we started with about a year ago when Raphael and I sat down to talk about how we would looking to support all of our various programs and the really aggressive goals that the programs team has for delivering on our decarbonization programs, and currently all of our different touch points that customers have for getting in touch with us. We have, you can hit the forward, there'll be some little animations that come in. Yeah, so we've got on the left here, our contact center for, which is primarily where our customers will call in for if they've got questions on their bill, they're not sure who PCE is, they want to, maybe opt out because they think it's an extra charge. We also do get calls in the contact center there when customers are in the process of doing something with like our rebate programs. Go click one more time. And maybe they actually need to talk to one of our other partners here. There's some other programs going on, or we need to find a status on a current rebate they've applied for, or their 0% loan. But right now our contact center cannot help, with those solutions. That contact center is meant really just as a function of real basic sort of customer service. It's a pooled set of agents, with Calpine that helps service calls for our local CCAs, us, San Jose Clean Energy and Silicon Valley Clean Power. We all sort of share a pool of agents. There's a couple that are dedicated to PCE, but then they have an overflow pool of agents as well. So all of those agents are really sort of trained on the basics of CCA and they don't have access to our other systems where they could check on a rebate status or whatnot. Let's go to the next slide. So when a call is coming in, to that contact center, it hits the IVR platform, which is in contact. I named that here just because I want to show some consistency between the current system and what we're doing going forward with this platform. And then it goes to the tier 2 CSR. So Energy Choice California is actually an LLC that is operated as a division of AnswerNet, which is a call center company. They service a lot of different call center functions, but the Energy Choice California is an arm that's specifically for Calpine CCA clients. So these are dedicated to just answering CCA questions. They're trained just in our programs, but they are, a third party group that's sort of twice removed from our frontline staff here.
Would you mind just telling me
Sure.
what the acronym IVR stands for?
It is, I do know this, I think it's, voice, it's like integrated voice response. I think that's what it is, yeah.
Interactive voice.
Interactive, sorry,
Sorry.
interactive, yeah, sorry, interactive voice response. It's basically when you make a call, when you call anywhere and like the computer answers the phone first and it's like,
Oh,
press
okay.
1 for English, press 2 for, you know, help. That's what an IVR is. It's helping to filter your calls. You can actually do some self-service on our IVR system. So if someone just wants to opt out and they don't want to talk to anyone, if they can answer all the questions correctly, like with their account information and whatnot, they can opt out. They can also opt up to equal 100. So there are some self-serve functions on our IVR system, but mostly it's meant to filter people into the right sort of tree of either information or to talk to a representative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Thanks.
Yes.
Why is Minnesota Clean Energy not allowed to contact?
That's what I was gonna.
Yeah, because yeah, so it's a good question, because of the relationship, the contractual relationship with this third party, and they're like 2 steps removed. And some union agreements that are in place with that call center staff. Part of that agreement is that, you know, they take direction and work and training specifically from their internal team, and we can't have direct access to that team. So that's a challenge, which, you know, for the past couple of years has not been, you know, that necessarily, or, you know, when we were starting off wasn't that big of a deal because we weren't asking, or we didn't need a whole lot of extra services from the call center. We just really needed someone to be competent when they answer the phone and answer some basic questions about who we were. But now that we're moving into this next level of service and programs and stuff for customers, we really do need that frontline staff to be able to do more. And it's just, it's really driving why we need to make this transition to bring that staff in-house so we can have more direct control over the training, the scripting, the information that they're delivering, and we can get much more timely feedback. Right now we have like a weekly check-in where we'll, you know, get information from Calpine about, you know, sort of the call stats from the week before. We can make special requests to get call recordings if necessary, but everything is on a delay. Whereas when we bring that function in-house, we'll have that staff right there and we'll be able to live monitor those calls, be able to, you know, get feedback much more instantaneously. So yeah, so these are some of the challenges in the current ecosystem there, where we don't have that immediate feedback. We can't have that direct contact with the frontline staff. And if we go to the next slide real quick. And so this is also the issue with the escalation. So if there's an escalation out of the call center, so if it's not a basic question that can be answered in one call and that needs to be escalated out, the agent has to create a ticket, which then gets sent to our account manager at Calpine, and then sometimes they can answer it, but then sometimes they need to forward it to our teams separately. And so it's usually like a minimum 1-day delay when we're able to follow up on something for folks. Sometimes it rolls into a couple of days delay, just based on, you know, when that ticket gets escalated out, when our team gets a hold of it, when we can then respond back to it. And so it's just not an ideal scenario in customer, it's not a level of customer service that we want to, or that's really sort of functional for us to go forward when we're gonna be asking people to do a lot more. We need to be able to get back to them a lot sooner and solve their problems a lot quicker. So let's go to the next slide real quick. And so with this new, you know, in-town house system, the technology on the front end and that process is gonna stay the same. So the phone call is still gonna come into the same phone number, still gonna hit the same IVR system. We are gonna adjust some of the trees or the branches in the IVR system to add in some new features. But then when they hit an agent after that, those are gonna be PCE staff. And that PCE staff is gonna have the ability to you know, have access to both the programs team, you know, platform to track status for rebates applications. They're gonna be able to have a more sort of 360 view of the customer, potentially advise them on other services or programs that they might be interested in. When we launch the concierge service later This year, they'll have ability to schedule, for one of those concierge appointments in that first call. And so that's really, what we're trying to do here is provide just a much tighter service for folks and be able to address their needs with minimal, follow-up and having to play phone tag or emails back and forth to get questions answered. Yep.
It's just so I'm clear, I think I heard you say that the first contact with concierge will be through this system. It won't be through a concierge person, it'll be through this system.
Yeah, so the concierge, so the concierge scheduling, like people will not call that concierge person directly. They would either reach out via email potentially, or in a call to the contact center, and then our CSRs would schedule the appointment with that concierge service for follow-up. Yeah.
That answers the big question I had about the concierge service. When I heard you were hiring 1 or 2 people, how's that possibly gonna work?
Right.
Now I get it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, good. Glad we answered that. Yeah, so it just provides us just a lot more insight into what's going on and provides for a cleaner process to follow through. Let's go to the next slide real quick. And then the new escalation ecosystem here is just, again, much closer. We don't have to go through 3 or 4 hands back and forth in order to follow up. Ideally, we'll be able to close the loop in one call, or be able to handle it in 1 or 2 emails back and forth, and not multiple communications back and forth that span several days, which is what happens right now if someone has a complicated issue and it takes a lot of back and forth to solve. One of the other things I didn't mention in the other slide, we do occasionally get people that through the, because folks will still have direct relationships with some of our other partner vendors, like for the home upgrade program, Franklin Energy, that's gonna be taking over that program. They're still gonna be doing first contact with customers, scheduling their own appointments to do the home energy upgrade evaluations. But what has happened in the past is sometimes those folks who have an appointment scheduled, they might forget what it is, they might need to confirm it last minute, or they may need to cancel it last minute, and they are not sure who to call, and they're reaching out to our contact center. And there's been more than once where it's happened where they're calling like at 4 o'clock the day before, and they're supposed to have an appointment the next morning at 10 a.m. and we're not able to get back to them in enough time to either confirm their appointment time with them or reschedule, and it creates a missed opportunity in a sort of a break in that service that we'll be able to solve by bringing that staff in-house. Yeah, let's go for the next slide. And then, so this is just sort of an example of some of the topics, that we'd be training the CSRs on. So, everything from, basics of PCE and energy, efficiency, evaluation for, bill usage, recommendations on our rates, to all of our different programs, and potentially, other services that might be available to them. So it's just sort of this is not an all-inclusive list, it's just sort of like a broad strokes. Let's go to the next slide. Thanks. And then just to talk through a little bit, so some of our peer agencies have made this transition to in-house staff, to different degrees. MCE has actually, I think, what I'd say gone the furthest, where they've transitioned to building out their own IVR and CRM platform that's separate from their billing provider and data management company, and also in-house their CSR staff. So they've sort of got it to the next level. We're gonna do a little bit of an in-between, where we're still gonna maintain the IVR system that's in place and the CRM that's in place with Calpine. We're not planning to build out our own complete CRM system internally right now. It's a really big IT and financial investment that we're not sure that we need to make at this point. And so we're gonna do really more like a Sonoma Clean Power and Clean Power SF model, where they're both still utilizing Calpine systems, but have brought the staffing in-house. With Clean Power SF, the staff is actually part of the larger SFPUC call center, but they, have a few agents that are sort of bracketed for CPSF calls specifically. And then Sonoma Clean Power, they actually have a hybrid approach where they have a few in-house CSR. They still have backup with Calpine, but they're going to be transitioning to drop those backup agents with Calpine and ECC and just do their in-house staff over the next 1 to 2 years. Next slide. And so this is our timeline that we're looking at right now. So our plan is to go to the board this month and sort of request that they give us the blessing to move forward with the transition plan. And then assuming that gets approved at the board meeting, we would then start with a moving ahead, creating all of our training materials, look to onboard Stephanie as a regular employee starting July 1, and then recruit and train and onboard staff over the next 3 months after that. Our ultimate goal is to be able to transition to be taking calls in-house by November. And so that, because right now we have our contract with Calpine, our current contract with Calpine actually expires in December. So at the same time, we're negotiating an agreement with Calpine for services. And so I want to have that call center function sort of removed from their oversight before we start a new contract in January. This is our outline, the plan. And let's go to the next slide. And so our recommendation here is we're recommending that the CAC support the plan to transition to an in-house contact center so we can enhance our overall customer experience and support PCE's decarbonization program goals.
So what are the staffing and financial impacts of this?
Yeah, no, great question. So what we've got proposed is a manager and 3 CSRs, so a total of 4 new headcount. The rough budget for that for salary and benefits is about $500,000. The new additional incremental costs that we'd be taking on is $336,000 because there would be a bit of an adjustment in our costs with Calpine because we would not have that staff supporting us from this ECC call center, which it's currently covered in our agreement. So we'd sort of back out those costs there. But it's about, $336,000 a year is what we're estimating. We'd also have to, one other cost that we have to take on is, so right now there are some bilingual staff that are in the call center, but then they also have access to a live translation hotline for any languages that are not covered by bilingual staff, or bilingual staff is unavailable and you get a bilingual call that comes, or a non-English call that comes in. We will be hiring at minimum, 1 CSR bilingual Spanish. We also have happy to hire more if that's an option. We're also targeting Mandarin as a second language for us, but we would still have that live translation service available. And so part of us bringing that staff in-house is we would now have to incur the direct costs that are associated with that translation service based off of the types of calls we had this last year. Assuming that we were able to sort of take down the number of Spanish translation calls that are coming in, we think that costs about $6,000 a year for those translation services. So that's the bulk of that differential of our bringing in new staff, taking away costs for staff from the Calpine contract, then plus adding in the translation services.
Other questions for Leslie?
Yeah.
What were the hours of the call for?
Yeah, so we haven't totally mapped out that operational plan yet. Probably gonna keep the same hours that we have right now, which is regular business hours, like 8 to 5. But that's something we'll work through with Stephanie and staffing, depending on also if we get approved to hire all the staff. If we don't get approved for 3 CSRs, for example, and we only get approved to hire 2, then we might need to make some adjustments on the operation time. Yeah.
Oh, Jason.
A couple of things. One, I think this is great. I want to do this 100%. Anecdotally, I've heard from people over the years, they've had difficulty getting past that first level of information when they call in. And specifically in the last month, I've had 2 people complain to me who don't like PC very much about we read that we weren't gonna be losing money, but we called in, no one could explain to us why my bill is 10 times what it was the same
Yeah.
usage last year. And I think that connecting this with the marketing team will be very useful because just having the people in Sonoma or wherever the answers it have no idea what's going on about that piece, at least anecdotally.
Yeah, no, and we do, and so that's really one of the biggest challenges, because we do regularly send over like new talking points or, here's what we'd like to do, but because we can't do the direct training, to that staff, like, and we can't monitor every call that comes through. There's like 600 calls a month, so we can't listen to all of them. But we do try to bring that through, but yeah, that's a big challenge. So was that staff's in house, and we can make sure to get those talking points in, correctly right away.
Well, because I've called both the PGD side and the
Yeah.
PC side, and then I end up calling you, and you
Yeah.
always know what's going on, but they don't necessarily know what you know, and so
Mhm.
you know that from me in the past.
Yeah.
Too. But I also would like to offer, if you wanted, and I'm sure others would too, to guinea pig for your training. We've done this before when you're doing the website stuff, you had us test out the messaging and everything, and I'm happy, I know the complaints, so I'm happy to play a part in the fall or whenever you want.
Okay, that's
With
great.
new people, if you want to just have a nice customer, an irate customer, or whatever kind of customer.
I'm sure Stephanie would love to role play that.
I can do whatever you want.
Yeah, great. Exciting.
Yeah.
Questions, Joe?
Mhm.
And then it seems like you're increasing the quality of the.
Yeah.
service.
Yeah, it's really the intent, yeah.
So if I have to kind of encapsulate this, the cost will increase a little,
Yeah.
300.
Yeah, about 330, it's an estimate, but yeah, about 336,000, yeah.
And since the last contract was negotiated, the service territory increased a little, I think. And this effort is also kind of supporting clean energy programs.
Yeah.
So increasing the quality of the service, supporting programs, modest cost increase, but serving a greater audience and
Yeah.
maybe more multilingual need now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I think this sounds great. The one question I have is, you said that you're at least gonna start out with it just being very regular business hours. And I'm just wondering if you've considered or evaluated the possibility of having some evening and or weekend hours. Just thinking from the perspective of, like a person who's working full-time, it's the evenings and weekends when people actually have time to start thinking about this stuff and.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely, I think it's definitely a consideration. We would need us to have more staff. And I'm not sure that we're in a position to commit to more staff, but if you want to recommend that we have more staff so that we have more hours, open to that suggestion. Yeah.
Evening or something. People who can't get there, be through the, daytime hours. Robert? Yeah.
I get asked some questions about rates, and I get asked questions about what is a CCA? But the second thing I get many questions about is when are you going to get concierge service? And I'm really happy to see how the front of this is going to work. So somebody can just basically call this number and get the concierge. I think that's spectacular.
Yeah, no, I think Raphael's definitely excited to launch that as well. I know they're
A lot of questions.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm not interested.
Great, yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Leslie, it seems like a great opportunity for PCE to look good and to have, be professional. And we all know what it's like calling a place like AT&T where they can basically do anything that you need them to do. The first person you talk to, which is a really impressive thing. Unlike other companies where you get in the trees and then you end up getting cut off and it's awful. So this looks like a great opportunity for, the image of the organization. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And
Diane.
one more small comment. I want to +1 to what Kathleen said. I'm not sure of the tail end of what she said was heard about shifting the hours 1 or 2 days a week. So that there's like a late start so that there could be some accommodation in the evening.
Yeah.
Growing the number of hours, just making some little tweaks to shift them.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something we can talk about, but and it may be around a staffing strategy where we hire, like, instead of, 3 full-time staff, a couple of part-time staff potentially. I don't know what the options are, but definitely need to manage around folks' expectations for working regular hours, and what we can backfill and make sure we have everyone covered. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea too. Maybe just having a 10 to 8 one day or 10 to 8
Yeah.
2 days a week or
Yeah.
something.
Or on Saturday after you receive your bill.
Yeah.
Just saying,
I'm not, I'm serious. People pay bills on weekends, They get their bill on a Saturday, during the week, and then that first Saturday, they go through their bills. Oh, you can call.
We have a lot of good
Just
ideas.
spitballing.
Yeah. No, these are all really, really good suggestions, so we'll definitely take them in.
All right, is this an action item on our, oh, okay, good.
We can support it.
I see it as an action item, okay. So, do we want to take action, and if so, what is the action?
I'm always a fan whenever you want to do something in-house, never a fan of outsourcing. So absolutely. For all the reasons you stated and many more.
Would you like to make a motion, Stephen?
Can we make a recommendation to the executive board?
Well, just that we consider, they are a recommendation to us. Leslie brought this one up, and is asking us to consider this recommendation.
Oh, absolutely. So moved.
Can we add something to it to suggest, recommend, whatever that, would be consideration of, providing some evening and or weekend hours?
We could do that. Vanessa, are you able to?
I would like to amend my name.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Kathleen said.
So we could essentially have our motions say that the CAC recommends supporting the plan
Yes.
with the potential exploration of additional hours, something like that.
Yes.
Or shifted, just to make sure there's some evening or weekend opportunities.
To accommodate our working customers.
Yeah.
Or ratepayers.
I'm gonna share my screen with
Thank you.
some language that I heard.
So is there a way to copy and paste existing? You got half of it there.
Yeah.
And then add the clause at the end, you added.
Yeah,
So the way it's rated, it sounds like we're shifting from day to evening. So maybe shifting isn't the right word. How about adding some
You just
evening and
shifting
weekend
some.
hours?
Or including some weekend, evening and or weekend hours.
Yeah.
well, she's working on that.
Can we break it into 2 sentences? Oh, you are, sorry.
Can we change the font?
Let's use McSands. Windings.
I do
Always
want to
fun.
change the font.
Seems to accomplish what we were thinking.
Yep.
Right, so, Stephen, you amended your initial, motion to include all of this?
Absolutely.
All
I
right,
second.
all right, Jason is our second.
Daniel Bearwall, Diane Bailey,
Approve.
Stephen Booker,
Aye.
Michael Clausen,
Aye.
Kathleen Goforth,
Aye.
Melee Humuli,
Approve.
Aurelio Huizar,
Approve.
Gail Lee, Jason Mendelson,
Approved.
Cheryl Shaw,
Approve.
Desiree Thayer, Robert Whitehair.
Approved.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Great, Leslie, thank you. That was
Great,
really
thanks.
comprehensive. It's exciting.
Very excited.
There's some more local folks employed.
That's right. All right, oh, I never did ask for public comment on that. I will ask for public comment on that. Is there any comment on the issue that we just discussed, about the customer call center plan? Any public comment?
I'm not seeing any online.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the next item, which is a discussion on distributed energy resources plan, which will be presented by Robert and Diane and possibly Kathleen.
Okay.
Thank you. So this is the distributed energy resources plan will be next, and this is about the resolution supporting an analysis of greenhouse gas reductions from local building electrification options.
Yeah, and you know, Diane,
Yeah.
this was
Mouthful.
briefly mentioned in the last meeting.
Yeah.
So please just be generous in your explanation of what you guys have talked about since then.
Yeah, I can try to keep it brief. First of all, thank you so much to staff and everyone who helped get this on the agenda today, and for meeting with us and talking to us, especially to David. And I think that Jennifer is on the Zoom, and so if I say anything wrong, please stop me.
You got it.
Yeah, thank you. Try to be careful, keep it high level, and no legal anything. At our last meeting, we talked briefly about local codes on building electrification and PC's role really supporting local cities and the county in adopting these kinds of decarbonization policies. And PC has played a crucial role, I would argue, in supporting cities and the county in adopting these policies since 2019, and been really a leader throughout California, kind of tipping off, I think, over 100 different city decarbonization policies now. And so the amount of support coming from PCE, I feel really grateful for, and just tipped off this whole movement. And yet now things are a little different, and without getting into the reasons for the need to kind of shift approaches with local building decarbonization policies, that is happening this year. There are different policies under consideration, and thankfully, there are still a lot of cities who are really wanting to support these local building decarb or electrification policies and move the ball forward. And it's wonderful to see that level of support. But because the world around us has changed and the state energy codes are changing and the way that local governments can adopt their own policies has changed, we thought it would be really important for PCE to give a little more guidance to local jurisdictions about the different policy options. What is under the hood? Not slowing down the process. I think that there's an urgency to these local policies. We all know we're living in a climate crisis, and we really want cities to act with speed and with deliberation and be thoughtful in the way that these policies are constructed. Thankfully, back in 2021, am I getting this right? PCE adopted a really ambitious greenhouse gas reduction target to be carbon-free by 2035. And that really set the table for cities to contribute with their own policies. And so in keeping with these policies that the board has adopted and that PCE has supported, we want to continue to urge cities to maximize the carbon reductions in these building electrification policies, to look at co-benefits, like what are the health and air quality benefits of the policies that we're talking about, but also not to let our eye leave the central issue of, how many greenhouse gas reductions can we get with the given policy? And with a policy that started in 2019, looking at the same one today, the emission reduction potential might be a lot lower. And so it seems like an important point in time as cities are going to be acting this year, ideally before the end of the year, to adopt these types of policies. Let's disclose and have a level of transparency. What are the carbon emission reductions? What's the potential of the different policies on the table, so that the cities and the county can make informed decision-making? They might have differing appetites for legal risk or for maximizing co-benefits like health benefits. And it's really important that they have all that information at their disposal to make these really important decisions. Cities have limited agenda time at their city council meetings, limited staff time. And so they can't just be adopting 15 different building electrification policies. It's really important that they craft the strongest, most effective, most beneficial policy that they can. Or at least we hope that PC can help them set the table to do so. That said, there's a limit to staff time here at PCE, and I'm aware that what this resolution is asking for, which is to disclose the emission reduction potential of the policies and disclose the co-benefits, that does take staff time and effort. But I think that we'll all benefit from it. And so in the short term, where cities need this information today, perhaps a screening analysis can be done to give more ballpark estimates of these this disclosure that we're asking for. And over the coming months, a refined analysis would be incredibly helpful. We know that the county has really good resources like Rinkin Consulting, helping with climate action plans, and they can help crunch these numbers. But the purpose of the resolution, and where I'm asking for your support, Robert, I'm going to turn to you in a second, is just on the issue of disclosure, to tell the member cities and the county what types of policies they're actually acting on, what the carbon impacts would be from those policies and how they relatively compare to each other. Robert.
Let me ask a point of order here. Do you want to take public comments? Or do you want us all to talk and take public comments? How would you like to do that?
I think you guys should all present and then we ask for public.
Okay. But Diane said it well, and I want to point out, I think most of you know that a lot of us spend a lot of time in front of city councils over the last 5 years. I think I've probably been to 12 of the city councils at least once, often twice. My own city council probably, it's no joke, 10 times over the last 5 years. They get on the agenda, and it's usually somewhere in the middle of the agenda, and they have about, if they're lucky, half an hour to go through everything that's being presented to them, if they're lucky. So let's say general plans are all coming up now, issues with staff, all kinds of things. What we're looking for, what I'm looking for, is helping out these council members with more information about the relative merits of the various options. I've seen 5 or 6 options on the table from different people. The 2 options that PCE is directly involved in is the air quality option and the energy performance option. Both of them have vastly different outcomes in the sense of how much carbon dioxide it's going to save and what the impact is going to be. And that's why we're asking for that somebody take the time, and I guess it's probably going to be Blake or somebody in his organization or Rincon, to figure out what is the relative value of each one of them. If you look at the climate action plans of most cities, they're looking at a pretty substantial reduction in total greenhouse gases. In my city, 350,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent over a few years. You can't do that just with a few things. It's going to take all the buildings in our city. It's going to take transportation. Cities get to make the choice, but I want to provide the information to the cities so they can make a valued decision, a trusted decision that people can put behind. Today I heard Blake talk at the Code Red. He did just a great job. He had this analogy. We have an action that we want. We want the disclosure of all the impact of all the options. We have a problem. Member agencies have a long list of items on the plate, a little time to deal with them all. And the program we want to build is confidence that the methodology available will work. Confidence when cities adopt a program for air quality, that it's going to be something really impactful to the residents of the community. You can't do that, I can do it back of the envelope, and I have an idea what I think the two options might be, or some of the options might be, but that's not enough. We really need data. We have just a bank of talented staff who's done some stacked data, looking at the various options. And that's what I would like to see, is that kind of information, not changing policy. We appreciate all the PCE has done over the last many years of bringing this to us. We wouldn't be here having this discussion about these impacts if it were not for a very successful PCE program. So I want to build on that. They've done so much, and now with some new building codes that there's something coming down the line, we'd like to give support to councils, have some advocacy in the community, which I will be out in the community again. Standing at a table is one thing, being out there in the community talking to groups is something completely different. So I've said a lot, and I'll stop there. And I very much want the PCE staff to build the data that we can use to take to councils and make it available to the public so they can decide. Thank you.
Kathleen, anything to add?
No.
Okay.
Comment. Yeah, is there any? Go ahead.
Do you think it'd be helpful to put the language on the screen so that people can see it?
Here she goes.
That was on it.
Well, I also want to thank the staff of the legal department for meeting with us. We did have a meeting with David Silverman. I don't know if I say his name right. And Kirsten and Vanessa, and I think Blake was in the meeting, and Diane and I. It was a great meeting, very honest, very straightforward, very professional, very respectful. I appreciate them going to that trouble.
To read.
Questions?
Oh, do we want to read it into the record?
We can read it first. Have to do it.
Do you want to take questions from
It's in the package, so it's already in.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
We
great.
have it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it says, does anyone have questions? Questions for Robert and Diane and Kathleen? As I
So I do have a question.
Okay.
What I'm hearing you describing right now sounds like your focus is really on these two model ordinances, right?
More broadly on local policy options to electrify homes and buildings.
Okay, so this would be,
It started out with the first two, and then as we got into it, we realized there's lots of other options that have been kicked around, that options we're not aware of. There are policies that may play into this.
Mhm.
You know, we don't want to go study all PCE and study all the cities, but we want to focus on the 5 or so policies that would have an impact on these ordinances.
okay, so the reason I'm asking that is because when I read the language that we have here, it sounded a whole lot broader to me, like, and I think it's probably the inclusion of, I'm trying to find the language, we talk about programs and is it still in there? Yeah, programs offered. I'm sorry, my glasses aren't working. Existing plan, building electrification policies, model ordinances, regulations and programs offered by PCE or others. And so when I saw that, I'm thinking programs, oh my gosh, we've got loads of programs. I mean, are we talking about evaluating, you know, all the
Maybe you
things
could
we're
help us
rolling out, with the
wordsmith.
rebates and all that sort of
I
thing?
think promoted is the key word. Where PCE is promoting a policy,
Mhm.
disclose what are the benefits and how does it relatively compare
Right.
to the other things being promoted so that people can make an informed decision.
So we're talking about the things that PCE would be recommending that a local jurisdiction adopt as its own policy, not so much a program that PCE is rolling out with
Yeah.
rebates and home electrification services and all that sort of
When
thing.
we were writing this, we struggled with it a little bit, we wanted to be as inclusive as possible, knowing that we could pull back once we had more discussion.
Yeah.
We couldn't account for everything, but we know 3 to 4 that are the big issues.
Right, so I guess in certain things, it sounds like we were trying to cover every possible thing that PCE could ever do here. And I think maybe if we narrow it down, it would be more focused on what I'm hearing now that you're really
that would be
interested in.
appropriate.
And
What I didn't want to do though, on the other side, is not include something that was important because I didn't understand it or we didn't understand it, that it might have an impact.
right, so if, for example, if you took out program, building electrification policies, model ordinances, regulations, sounds to me like what it is you're focusing on, take out programs. Does that still get to what it is you're talking about?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's the model ordinances, you know. If I have my druthers, I say, what about the impact of the IRA? What about the impact of all the programs? I don't see that within the scope of what we're doing. It's the model ordinances are the two big ones that I'm personally most interested in.
And I want to be clear, I'm not saying I don't think that information would be useful. I would love to have that information about everything, you know, all the options that are out there. I'm just trying to be realistic about what we're asking of PCE staff.
Yeah.
And the way it's worded now kind of felt like, oh my God, they're not gonna have time to do anything but these analyses. But I think what I'm hearing you talk about sounds more realistic. So I'm just trying to make those two things jive.
Yeah, I apologize that we put so much into it. And I guess I'm the one responsible that I put a lot of stuff into it. We are willing to talk about model ordinances and things like that.
Okay, that was my
Are you
only.
suggesting edits to the last paragraph or the second to last paragraph?
Last one.
be it resolved,
The
right?
resolve,
Right.
well,
Okay,
it's actually, I think it's actually in both.
It's in both.
It's
That's
in
right.
both.
It is. in both.
Okay, got it. And what is the edit exactly that you're proposing?
What I was proposing was just asking if we took out and programs, because programs just seem way broader than what they're talking about.
Pick out that whole
Take out
phrase.
or programs.
Pick out the whole phrase. Is that what you're proposing?
No,
No,
program.
Just
you
program.
want to be clear that you're talking about policies, model ordinances, and regulations.
And so move the and before regulation. Yeah.
So can I ask?
Sure.
Go ahead. If it was a model ordinance, would that achieve what you want without adding regulation, policy and program?
Out of the model ordinances will come regulations.
But if you just start with the model ordinance, then you don't have all that extra content in there and you just focus on the one
Well,
thing to start.
I hear what you're saying, Gail, but what I'm deathly afraid of is that city councils will say, well, there's the model ordinance, we'll adopt some other regulation. I really am very keen on finding out what the impact are, ordinances and regulations that impact what climate emissions. And that can, I don't know where that's all gonna come from. I know it's broad, but it's intentionally broad. I don't know, does that answer your question? Sort of.
It does, but it's so broad that I don't know, if they know what to do with it.
Yeah, I have the same, so ECE is gonna put out a model ordinance or advocate a model ordinance.
They have.
And, I mean, yes, I might do more in the future. And you said out of that regulations would come, so a city might decide, we're gonna go write some other regulation. I can see asking PCE to provide the information about what it's proposing, but if the city wants to go develop something completely different, is it really on PCE to
Yeah.
do that analysis?
No, I think it's just a question of longevity of this intent. So for this year, we're talking about the model ordinances, right?
Mhm.
Next year, it could look a little different, and
Mhm.
so I think it's just expressing the intent that whatever the thing is that PCE is promoting, that the impacts and benefits be disclosed. If a city is being asked, do you want to consider adopting this, that they be notified, here's what will happen if you do adopt this.
And so that's captured in the language that says offered by PCO, that's the other piece, the or others. So offered by PCE or others. So if it's really just what PCE is promoting, and I think that language was in there initially, wasn't it? That it was policies promoted by PCE,
Mhm.
and I'm not sure why that got changed.
I think it's, if you're having trouble seeing it, I think it's repeated.
Yeah, no.
The full paragraph.
Yeah,
By
so
PC
the
programs
promoted part's still
offered
here.
by PCE or others.
Mhm.
Um. Yeah, PCE or others. But if what we really want is just the ones the PCE is advocating, isn't that sufficient to just say offered or promoted by PCE? So it wouldn't necessarily have to have been something developed by PCE, but if somebody else developed something and PCE is then saying, here, local jurisdictions, we think this is a great thing to do, then, well, yeah, we want PCE to provide this disclosure. But if it's not something that PCE is advocating, why would we ask them to do the disclosure?
Well, full disclosure, having sat for council meetings till midnight, and some of the stuff that comes up at the last minute, just, I'm a little wary. That's my problem, I guess, but I am wary of what councils can come up with. Zero dark 30, when you're really tired. You've heard 100 people, which has happened. Heard 100 people speak, and all of a sudden they come up with this other stuff. That's why it's a little broader than maybe we normally would do.
Does it help to strike or others? Is that where the discomfort is?
Yeah, that
It
was.
does seem like it.
That got added
Beyond,
in at the last minute, and
Oh.
it seemed like that.
For you?
Yeah.
okay,
And
so
so
we're
it's
gonna
always got it
delete
added,
in the
you're
third
correct.
paragraph, yeah,
So,
it's in the next one as well.
but so as long as we still have the language that's like promoted or offered by PCE, that would still
Well-
offer what you're interested in, right?
Right, but I would suggest, I don't know what staff's response will be to this, because they may go, this is too much for us, or too big of a project, but I think knowing what the member jurisdictions, rather than saying others, but knowing what the member jurisdictions are doing and being able to calculate or opine on that, if it's not coming from PCE, I think is an important piece to ask for. It might not be something they can do or willing to do, but I think it's important to have. If you take out the or others, or you take out the or member jurisdictions, then you're only looking at things promoted or offered by PCE and not things adopted by member jurisdictions that may not have come under promotion or offering a PCE. So I think asking to know what the ramifications are of a policy that a member jurisdiction takes is worthwhile to know. It might not be doable, but I think that's part of why I like it being broader in that sense.
That seems like a lot to ask of this organization.
It
It might
does.
be.
That's true, but if you're at an organization, say you're at some city and this issue comes up, you want to be able, I want to stand up to the council and say, look, that was not vetted, that was not considered on all this data. You don't know what you're really making a decision on. Please don't say this, please don't make it up. Not that they would, but things happen in the heat of the moment or 0 in the morning, you know, it's, I think the record was 1:30 one of the meetings I went to. That stuff happens. I just want to be able to say to a council member, a lot of us will probably be there again. But please think about what you're doing.
I also don't know what other organization would be opining on it other than PCE. I assume as they've done, they're gonna go to Raphael and go, Raphael, what do you think of this? They've always done that, so I think that it's important that the staff is giving their as objectively as possible data on what they think would be the outcome of a policy. I think they do it anyway, but I think our recommendation is to ask them to do that.
I think that's a great segue, Jason. Raphael, what do you think?
And we have Blake here who will be able to offer a little more detail than what I'm about to say, but just from a high level. What's being suggested is totally reasonable in principle. I'm much more comfortable having removed the word programs because that does feel like a boil the ocean exercise. And if you say others, that introduces still retains some heartburn for me. What gets challenging is if if the expectation were for every single city, we're gonna get building data, construction data for every single city, and for every tweak that every city might do, then have to recalculate everything all over again. That's a big job. Now, in aggregate, if we said, this one, countywide should do X, and that one countywide should do Y, and a per capita basis, we can roughly estimate the city's impact would be whatever. That's not a big deal. Blake, did I get that right? Anything else you want to add?
Yes, that's right. And I also spoke with Rincon, who's the greenhouse gas emissions inventory and climate action plan specialist that serves the county. So we spoke with that beforehand. That's exactly what we talked about. It's really hard to get things like building construction forecasts, and they change constantly based on things like COVID or housing crises. So if it's per capita and comparative, it would be much easier. I think still serve your requested purpose.
Can I ask how that would work? What do you mean per capita purpose, per capita? What do you mean by that? Like, so maybe I can understand it.
Yeah, let's say let's say I have 1,000 homes. I'd really do it by home rather than per capita. So if it's a single family measure, I would compare let's say there's a policy that is an existing building policy that you have to every time a water heater burns out, you have to electrify it. I could estimate what that would mean for 100 homes, and that would mean for a city that has 50,000 homes or 5,000 homes, I could just multiply that to compare it. And then I could do that for each different policy type. So basically give you an idea of the order of magnitude difference of GHG savings at the city level, but maybe not digging into their growth plans, which having done this before, those can just be really hard to find information on. And they change often. Does that answer your question?
Home sizes differ city to city, and you have all those sorts of things. So anything that's like forward-looking or very specific about the characteristics within the city as opposed to aggregate, and then we just do a rough approximation.
Yeah, and let's be clear, we're talking about primarily existing buildings when we're talking about these numbers. I'm not talking about new construction because they're set under different building codes requirements of the state. It's the existing homes that I'm really concerned about.
Sure.
And how it all plays out. So what I hear you saying, Blake, is you'll take 100, maybe 1,000 homes and do the kind of the typical reduction of greenhouse gases that come about from at least 2 of those ordinances, and extrapolate that out based on number count on a gross level to the entire city. Is that fair?
Correct. Around those ordinances also, I mean, this is a really good idea. I'm really glad that this was brought to the table tonight. So things like pre-wiring, some cities are asking us if we have a pre-wiring requirement during a major renovation, what impact does that have? We have already gone through an exercise to estimate the impacts of that. So we would also include something like that for applicant as an example who's considering that measure.
So it would be the air quality ordinance, the performance ordinance, pre-wiring, and maybe a few more like that you could consider. Is that what I hear you say?
Correct. And typically, if a city has a sustainability staff that's working on a climate action plan, they would do that. If there's a bunch of things being brought at the same time, a lot of staff have been moving around, so we don't always have that at our disposal at every city. But yes, those things.
I do wonder if we're just interested in existing buildings, because I think we have the 2 ordinances right now that are under consideration, but we had 2 before that were adopted by a lot of cities. And at least from what I've talked to my city, they're considering to just ride it out. Like they may not change it. And so we might want to know for those cities, like what are the GHG savings? And those are only for new buildings. To kind of, so that they could weigh maybe the legal risk with how much GHG savings they do have there. So I see at least 4 ordinances that would fall under this.
Josh, do you have a comment?
Yeah, well, for one thing, I want to be mindful of time and
Right,
people's
that's-
patience for this topic. And I want to note that I appreciate what Blake and Raphael provided just now, and that does sound good and realistic. And, you know, the intent of this discussion was really to look at what are the ordinances in front of cities right now? How can we help them make informed decision-making? In that realm, I do want to keep new construction on the table, to Desiree's point. I think it's important. I think some of the data that San Carlos released last year around bioscience development and how likely those new developments are to go all electric if they're not required, that was sobering. And so definitely keeping an eye on the different sectors generally, not to the pound of CO2, understanding that this is not like a detailed research exercise. This is just to give relative benefits and impacts for cities. So with the language changes that Kathleen suggested and that I think Raphael and Blake noted they were
And
comfortable with.
There's one more place where it needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
In the last paragraph, let's see, the fourth line.
Is there a program in
Yeah,
there?
it has
Yeah.
regulation and programs, take out and program, put and before regulation.
And the and at the bottom should be an or.
Should be an or,
Sorry
yes, that
about
was the other thing I was gonna say. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does
Good.
that,
Are
did
that-
we get out the other programs? Or by others? Is that removed in all the places?
The few others, do you want to remove for others, or do you want to say member jurisdictions instead?
I mean, I'm inclined to go along with removing it. But
Take it
Robert.
out. Put member jurisdictions, I mean, yeah, it's fine.
Well, right now it's neither, as it's been done. So if you want to wait for that one still,
Oh, I see.
I propose member jurisdictions instead of our others to limit it. But the rest of the group seems to want to remove the concept and just.
I see your point, or member jurisdictions, they might come up with something different, like the bigger cities might.
Well, we do know that in each round, many cities tweak the codes, the model codes. So just from the standpoint of what we have going on, I would prefer not to have to do a dozen, new estimates because they changed, one thing.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so before we make,
And again, just as a point of information, we're just recommending this. They could not listen to this at all, but I think it sounds like staff's cool with this, so this is a win-win thing.
Well, I just want to make sure that we deliver what you
course.
actually want in a way that's actually useful within the boundaries of what we can deliver.
I also think this is a starting point, so as things evolve, we can go back to this as the anchor from which we could recommend further things that we think are important too.
Raphael, we're kind of coming to you hat in hand.
I understand.
We can't do this on. our own. You
I
have all this
understand.
for your control of it. We really
Yeah,
need
that-
your
it's-
help. We appreciate
Also
having
not
this
really-
conversation.
Yeah, and it's totally reasonable. And then on the other side of me, I'm thinking about how many times Blake has told me, I've got too many things to do. I can't do these things, get these things done in time. So that's the tension.
Well, I want to thank, I was on when this was starting, but I want to thank especially you, Raphael, and Blake, and David and Jennifer and Diane and Kathleen and Robert, because this is the kind of thing that makes me really excited that we're doing. And I think that, and again, it's my understanding, I wasn't there, so don't, if this is wrong, Blake, but I heard Blake was into this too. So despite what you just said, if he's cool with this, I think this is a great starting point to try to tackle one I think is the most important problems we're facing right now, which is how to do the building electrification
That's what I was trying
en
to.
masse.
Yeah, I agree.
So-
It's a challenge.
And I think it's gonna be a big challenge. I think this is at least the entry.
Will be
point to do
helpful,
that.
yeah.
So.
We do need public comment before we.
yes, I was just gonna say that. So let me just,
Just a nitpick, but on the last line here, participating in such policy ordinance or regulation. That kind of confuses me, participating is the word that is there a better word than participating? Or is that adequate for people?
Or should you just take that out because you're really just saying adopting?
I would vote taking it out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Taking-
adopting.
adopting such policy ordinance
That helps me.
or
Good
regulation.
catch, Michael. It's good.
Let me just ask for, okay, Kathleen, go ahead.
All right. One more thing occurred to me. we're asking them to disclose to the member jurisdictions, can we somehow work in and the public? Because I think it would be useful for the public to be able to see this, because then you have a better chance of getting people to show up to their city council and advocate for the thing we really want.
Excellent suggestion.
So.
In the third line in the bottom paragraph, right after jurisdictions.
Okay.
And we kind of assumed, because it's public record, but putting it in there is even better.
Yeah, I mean, don't just send a letter to the jurisdiction, put something on your website
Right.
or something, you know, so
Oh,
it's
it's member
public
jurisdictions.
information. too.
Maybe it's and their residents. I like that.
Yeah.
The way Jason worked that and their residents.
Yeah, businesses,
What?
that excludes businesses.
Oh, okay.
Business
Okay.
can be
I think
resident.
the public is better.
Well, we're gonna put it on a website. We're not gonna send a mailer.
If you got these two policies up on the website, it's like, well, this one will actually help you meet your climate goals. This one is not gonna do squat. Choose what you want, you know. I think-
Well, just to be clear, we don't advocate in front of our own cities. Right,
No,
so we
but
provide technical support and the public determines what they wish to advocate in front of the cities.
Needs to be as informed.
Yes,
But
it's a good ad.
Yeah.
that's absolutely true, what we advocate. And we know the more information that's out
Of
there.
course, no, I'm not disputing that, and I wanted to draw the line that we would never send a mailer.
I'm making this statement.
Okay, let me know after public. Is there any public comment on this topic? Ryan.
Thank you. Good evening, Brian Schmidt from Menlo Park. And as a lawyer, I feel a need to apologize for what lawyers did to reach codes. But at least I'm not a judge. If you read the dissenting opinions on the Berkeley litigation, you could almost feel the embarrassment of what they did. But I think it's important to look at what's being proposed now as a fix to try and do something about that. The energy performance standard and the air quality standards do reach to some extent to fix the problem that was created by that litigation. So I'm very supportive of this and trying to figure it out. One thing I noted, Raphael mentioning doing a rough approximation of certain things as certain estimates. And I think that would actually be really valuable, because what I personally would not want to see is this to become a 2-year study. I think this is stuff that's happening right now. Providing information as soon as possible is more important than getting things down to decimal point details of information. The other thing I wanted to mention was that my organization has suggested an approach to what we call dual coverage, belts and suspenders, using the energy performance standard and air quality standards, doing both of them at the same time. Yeah, I'm not sure how exactly that would fit into this resolution. I think it actually doesn't matter in terms of discussing that, as long as the analysis sticks to what is stated up there, looking at the environmental effects. That approach we are suggesting is primarily about legal issues. If this analysis is going to reach into legal issues, then I think it would be really important for it to consider the dual coverage as a way of dealing with legal issues. If it just stays with this approach, just talking about the environmental issues without delving into the nefarious land of what other lawyers are going to try and do, then I think it's fine as is. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about our position. Oh, I should also mention that the City of Menlo Park, their Environmental Quality Commission, is supporting the dual coverage. So that's, if it becomes relevant, that's what one of your member jurisdictions is looking at, or one of their commissions is. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Are there any questions for Brian? No, okay, thank you. Oh, is this
So
right?
I
Yeah.
have just one thing, I think more logistics, so in that same last paragraph that we keep tweaking, so it says that we request that the PCE Board of Directors disclose to all its member jurisdictions. I think maybe we should say request PCE Board of Directors in, request staff.
Direct staff.
Direct PCE staff to disclose, because I don't think
What are you
we want to
comfortable
go through a Board of Directors meeting having to approve this data before getting it out to jurisdictions.
What are you comfortable with?
That actually makes sense.
Direct or?
No, what Desiree said.
So direct staff The direct PCE staff too.
Yeah, or just direct staff to disclose. That's really all you need.
That's what the language was.
So you just need two,
Two TO.
and that covers it, I think, right? It does, right? Okay. Room full of great writers.
Robert, do you?
You see? I forgot that it said I can't see. Well, this one.
That was at the light.
All right, any more discussion on this or
I'd like to
change?
make a motion that we adopt the resolution as modified.
I'd like to
All right.
second.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. So Diane seconded.
Daniel Bearwell, Diane Bailey,
Yes.
Stephen Booker, Michael Clausen,
Approved.
Kathleen Goforth,
Approved.
Leilani Muli,
Approved.
Aurelio Cruzar,
Yes.
Gail Lee, approved. Jason Mendelson, Gerald Schaff,
Approved.
Desiree Fair, approved. Robert Whitehair.
Approved.
Thank you. The motion passes.
All right, thank you. Thanks very much,
Can I
guys.
just make a comment? This is exciting stuff. Also you say, it's mundane, but for me, it's exciting stuff because we're getting somewhere.
I can see you doing cartwheels in your head.
I am.
Okay, great. All right, let's go back to our agenda here, regular agenda. So our next discussion will be on distributed energy resources, and that will be Peter.
Good evening, everybody. Is my audio all right?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so tonight I'm going to give a quick run through our immediate plans for future distributed energy resources programs. And I will distinguish this from a strategy. This is less of a strategy and more of what are our immediate plans on the horizon for future DER programs. If you go to the next slide, please. So we'll talk through the overview of programs that are both current and near-term programs on the horizon. And before that, we'll also go through just what the vision, definition, and objectives of DERs are at large. Next slide, please. So this is all couched into part 1 of the DER plan. We also will be developing a part 2 that is a much deeper dive. So there will be more analysis associated with that. We'll go through what innovation and policy needs are on the horizon, and then longer term 3 to 5 year future DER program concepts. But for right now, we're just going to focus on kind of defining DERs, looking at what we're currently working on, and then what the next iterations of our current programs will look like. I will also note that the recent work by the DER working group will directly inform some of our planning around the residential storage program that we are currently developing. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few of our programs and some high-level concepts for everyone's edification. Next slide, please. So you can just click through this. So these are ways that our programs team influences change. So you can see that we both drive individual decisions, but we also affect higher level change. And this is true for every one of our programs, or every one of our program segments, rather, EVs, building electrification, and DERs. So there's nuts and bolts stuff that we support, like helping customers get equipment. But then there's also policy things that are kind of behind the scenes and invisible, but just as important to influence. And so for each of these programs, it will affect one of these areas. Each of the DER programs we're running now affects one of these core influence areas. Keep going. Keep going. This is probably a chart that you folks have seen many times before, or will see again in the near future. And it looks at 3 legs of the stool in the programs team: the building side, the transportation side, and the DER side. We're going to focus mostly on the DER area here. And so you can see that we run programs that are geared towards government agencies, residential customers, and also programs that affect both residential and non-residential or commercial programs. So we have programs that touch all of these, and we're also expanding to double down on these customer segments. Keep going. We can just skip through the rest of the slide. Okay, so now we're just going to talk about some high-level DER concepts, so everyone is familiar with the why behind all of this. Keep going. Next, please. So this is how internally we define DERs, which kind of has a wide-reaching set of definitions across the industry. So for PCE, we define DERs as resources or assets that are on the distribution grid as opposed to the transmission grid, typically in load centers or close to urban populations, or preferably rather close to urban populations. They're behind the meter, and they can be aggregated or not to provide value to both the grid and individual customers. So this looks like solar panels, battery storage. When you start to tap into electric vehicle charging, that becomes a distributed energy resource. When you start to electrify homes, those become distributed energy resources. So this definition and the next one as well in the next slide are going to be important to keep in mind as we consider what programs we're running. So a virtual power plant is another one of those definitions where you ask 10 people what a VPP is, you'll get 10 different definitions. But in short, it's just an aggregation or a network of different or similar DERs. And they're typically resources that are dispatchable, but also things like insulating your attic could be considered a virtual power plant because it reduces evening load. But typically speaking, VPPs are distributed energy resources that you can call on to provide some sort of service, like reducing a customer's energy usage in the evening or sending energy back to the grid during a specific time. So virtual power plant is a kind of a newer definition that is important to become familiar with. Keep going. So all of these DERs and virtual power plants serve to provide numerous benefits to both Peninsula Clean Energy as well as our customers. These are just some of the benefits that they provide, but these are all very important. So first and foremost, they can provide grid benefits, and that's why Peninsula Clean Energy is interested in engaging in DER programs and projects. Grid benefits look like reducing our peak load, which traditionally is much higher than daytime or evening load. It can help us mitigate high energy hours. So playing, kind of like what's called wholesale energy arbitrage. And also it can, they can help to reduce energy when carbon intensity is very high, which complements the penetration of renewable energy. Further, they can provide energy resilience or backup power at customer homes. They can lower customers' bills or their operating costs. They can help complement the transition to building and vehicle electrification and make it more economical. And then furthermore, DERs, because they require a lot of hands-on work in consultancy with customers, deploying DERs allow PCE to step into a more direct relationship with our customer. And done well, that can foster retention of customers and also bolster our relationship with them. So this can help expand our existing organizational model in the long run. Keep going, please. Okay, so now I'm going to get to the meat of this presentation. I just talked a lot about what DERs are, as well as what the benefits are to Peninsula Clean Energy and our customers. Here is a quick snapshot of the core DER programs that we're running today. And then in a moment, I'll touch on what we're doubling down on or expanding on in the near future. So our residential solar and storage program, previously that program provided incentives for installations of solar and battery storage. It was a small incentive, but it also made use of the batteries in an intelligent way, and it influenced the dispatch strategy of those batteries. So we worked directly with a battery storage developer, Sunrun, and we influenced the dispatch of their batteries to reduce PCE's peak load. This was a small pilot. About 600 homes were enrolled. The enrollment is closed. It's primarily sunset, but it proved out that there is a direct relationship between the incentive we pay to a developer and the way that they influence the dispatch of the battery storage in their fleet. And it reduced PCE's costs. It helped customers make the solar and storage adoption more valuable. And is something the concept of load modification here is something that we plan to expand on in the near future. Going into the next lower quadrant, solar and storage on public buildings is one of our larger programs. In short, it's called GovPV. In this program, PCE is taking a pretty hands-on role in supporting project development and early stage consultancy with our public agency customers that are looking to add solar and battery storage at their facilities. PCE takes on the financing, so we directly finance on our own balance sheet the development and installation of these projects. And then our customers pay us back over time through a power purchase agreement. So we foot the bill, and then over time we get our capital costs recovered over a long-term contract with them. This also ends up reducing our customers' electricity bills. We're expecting, so we have about 12 sites under development. About 3 are operating right now. This is all in the first round. We have it's a 1.7 megawatt portfolio of projects under development, and we've expanded this program to a second round. And that second round has about 22 projects and about a 4 megawatt solar capacity in total. So while you may be thinking that's not a lot compared to what we're doing on our front of meter wholesale side, where we're signing 100 megawatt solar project PPAs, this is resulting in significant cost savings on a forecasted basis, that is, to the public agencies that are participating. We're projecting over $20 million in savings over a 20-year period for all of the combined agencies that are participating, which is quite substantial. And that will aid them in their ability to electrify other segments of their buildings. Next is an EV managed charging program. So we ran a pilot and then eventually expanded this pilot to other customers. It's predominantly a residential program right now. What we're doing in this EV managed charging program is tapping into vehicles directly through telematics and allowing customers to tell us when they would be allowed, when we are allowed to influence their charging behavior. I would say this is kind of like very research oriented in that there are a lot of there's a control group, there are different customers that customer groups based off of the amount of an incentive going to each customer. Some customers are receiving no incentive. So we're getting a lot of A to B testing in this initial rollout of the program. And what we're learning is how much load shifting capacity do we have for customers that are interested in allowing Peninsula Clean Energy to tap into their vehicle for load shifting. So we've just started this program. We're still in the evaluation phase in terms of the results, and we're also looking to expand this program to public agency customers as well. And then last on here is a program called Flex Market. Flex Market is a little wonky to explain. It is essentially a load shift program. We pay customers to shift their load to reduce their usage when prices are high or when electric load is dirtier, and we encourage them to increase usage during the daytime or when prices are low and when usage is cleaner. This is a CPUC funded program, where PCE is getting direct funds from the CPUC to cover our admin costs and also to pay out the incentives to customers. And we're pretty deep into this program already. We have more than half of the budget allocated to projects, and we will be looking to expand this program or renew the funding pool in about 1 year from now.
Peter?
So, yeah.
Next question, excuse me. I'm just a little confused. It sounded like you said you pay customers, but the slide is saying it's paying contractors. So how does the money get to the, is it just passed on through the contractor for lower priced equipment or something?
Yeah, thanks for asking clarification there. So it does go directly to contractors. So in that sense, it is a midstream program. You know, what we know is that there's empirical evidence that when you give contractors an incentive in this way, it does result in lower incentives going to customers. However, this program does not pay customers directly in that way.
Peter, can you give an example of that?
Yes, absolutely. So the most common project type in Flex Market is let's say there's a Costco that gets enrolled where they have really inefficient lighting throughout their parking lot, and a commercial contractor goes out and replaces all the lights in their parking lots, resulting in significant reduction in energy usage. So that's one project type. Another project type is a residential building electrification project, where a residential customer is adopting a heat pump water heater, converting it from either an inefficient electric resistance water heater or a gas water heater. And as a result of the change in load shape, the contractor installing that new water heater gets the incentive for participating in Flex Market. It is also worth noting that Flex Market is what's called a pay for performance program, which means that we look at how customer energy usage actually changed, and then that becomes the basis of paying out the incentive, which is not every program type is like that. As so it's a core tenet of the Flex Market. Okay, let's keep going here. So we want to talk about what's next on the horizon, and this is very near term. So this is mainly on a 1 to 2 year time horizon. And as I mentioned, we will be looking at developing a much more detailed DER plan for with long-term considerations. So with respect to programs geared towards residential customers, there are 3 types of programs that we're looking at standing up. The first is a battery storage and solar program where Peninsula Clean Energy is financing equipment in a similar way that as we're doing with our GovPV program. This program is right around the corner from being designed, and as I mentioned, the structure of this program will be influenced by the working group that was just concluded. And it's predominantly geared towards reducing customer bills while also achieving some amount of grid service benefits that Peninsula Clean Energy can tap into and in part pass on to customers. So Peninsula Clean Energy's involvement serves the role of providing incremental value to the customer's energy system. Additionally, we're looking at running a right-size resilience portion of our home upgrade program. So some customers that are looking to participate in the home upgrade program will be eligible to receive a right-sized battery storage system. And right-size here means we're not going to be throwing a Tesla Powerwall at every customer. We'll look at which customers, for which customers does it make sense to provide a portable battery storage system? or a medium scale battery storage permanent installation. And then, yeah, which customers ought to get a power wall. So we're in the process of designing the options for this portion of the home upgrade program. And as I mentioned, we're calling it right-sized resilience because it will be informed by which customers ought to be protected from power outage events, which customers experience power outages, and what are some of the safety and health benefits that accompany the backup power option that we're providing to the customer.
Peter,
The
I have a
last-
question.
Yeah,
Peter?
by all means.
Down the left-hand corner, is that a battery? I mean, it looks like a generator. I'm sure it's not, but is that a battery, like a handheld small battery sitting next to the heat pump water heater?
That's right. Yeah, that's a portable battery storage device. So it's probably enough to keep your router, modem, and cell phone powered for several days.
So that's like a 2 kW size?
Probably even smaller. I would think that's probably like a 300 watt hours or 500 watt hours.
Thank you.
And Peter, if I may interject. So the key reason for the right size resilience is to make resilience affordable. So a power wall will run you $15,000-$20,000 and up. We're talking about resilience at 5,000 or less. So the water heater offers some resilience, right? There are other elements to that. We're really looking at what the core needs are and how to deliver resilience at a fraction of the cost. And it's basically the same philosophy that we use in EV charging and electrification and everything else.
I like the word resilience. It's not, to me, it's not just battery backup. It's having control over your electrical service, having control over the way you use service. It's more than just a battery backup. I'm in charge of what's going on if I choose to be in charge. That's what I like about it. Thank you.
The last core element of our future residential programs for DERs is this concept of virtual power plants that I mentioned. And so we will be evaluating the opportunity to stand up some sort of demand response program, for instance, where we will be tapping into customers' electrified devices like a heat pump water heater or a smart thermostat powering an electric HVAC unit. And by tapping into those, we can reduce customers' bills. We can leverage those resources to reduce our RA costs. We can reduce our exposure to the wholesale energy market. I will also mention that the delineation here is a little less clean than is presented. And what I mean by that is that the virtual power plants, the first two programs that I mentioned are virtual power plants in some capacity, or some of those resources that we will deploy through those other programs, the fixed battery storage and right size resilience, will be capable of providing virtual power plant services. So it is sort of like a layer of future DER programs at large. Keep going, Vanessa. So beyond residential programs, we're also looking at expanding our non-residential programs. Oh, sorry. No, this is just still on this is actually just an expansion of what we were talking about with respect to the fixed battery storage program that we're looking to run. So in the near future, as in within the next few months, we're going to be designing a program that has these three core attributes. The first is that PCE is offering finance to customers who are looking to add solar and storage at their homes, similar to a power purchase agreement. But we also will be layering in grid services. So if to the extent that the batteries and solar are providing benefits to Peninsula Clean Energy, we will be looking at passing on some of that value to customers to offer a more compelling financial offering. So think about it like this: a customer is looking at the bill for adding solar and storage at their home. Maybe the PPA providers in their service territory are not offering compelling financials, with a good enough payback period. but PCE steps in and offers more compelling financial financing with also this grid services element. So the grid services element is key because customers will need to remain opted in to the grid services components, which provides value to all of Peninsula Clean Energy, not just those that are participating. And by remaining opted in, we can reduce their loan repayment amount. And we will also play a role in, with technical assistance, or at least selecting vendors who will be able to participate in this program. So I'm transitioning to non-resi next. Any questions about the broad strokes of this program? And I'll mention just one more time that we are still in the development phase of this program. These are just what we know to be the core aspects of the program, even though we haven't designed all of the details.
Peter, would the grid services be a pay for performance to the customer, or how do you envision that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it will have to be some sort of volumetric incentive. So it might be either they can throttle how much battery power capacity Peninsula Clean Energy can tap into, and that forms the basis of their incentive. Or as you just suggested, it could also be based off of the actual performance, how much capacity they actually leveraged during a specific event or over a specific month. We haven't ironed out which of those two approaches we will go forward with. So let's keep going. We can round out this convo, and then we'll leave time for Q&A. So on the non-residential side, as I mentioned, we are predominantly installing solar at public agency facilities right now. We will be going back to these customers that are adding solar right now and offering them a tack-on agreement or financing of some sort that Peninsula Clean Energy helps to leverage, so that they can add battery storage as well on a retrofit basis. And we already have been developing solar and storage projects with some public agencies that do not have solar yet. So it's, we have a handful of agencies that are looking to add solar and storage at large facilities in the county. So the key components of this future program, which we are also right around the corner from developing, includes a new finance and operating model, because Peninsula Clean Energy will not be financing all of this on our balance sheet. So we will need to leverage third-party finance, where somebody else is stepping in to cover the capital costs of these systems, but Peninsula Clean Energy is playing a role in aggregating all of the projects together. And then lastly, just like on the resi storage side, we will be looking at tapping into these resources for the grid services that they can provide, and helping customers to monetize those grid services in an optimal way, which then brings more value to each project. So keep going here. I think next is just a timeline. This is just a simple timeline explaining what is on the horizon, where we came from, and where we're going. So I don't think we need to get into the details here. I think we should prioritize pausing and leaving some space for Q&A.
We've actually been peppering you with questions all throughout the presentation. Does anyone have questions for Peter?
Well, hearing none, as I mentioned, we're really excited to not just execute on this near-term plan, but also to develop a longer-term plan that is informed by much more sophisticated financial and energy analysis. And it would be great to bring that to the CAC as well, to get your advice on blind spots or things we should be thinking about that maybe we're not. And that, we don't have a firm timeline on that yet, but it will certainly be more detailed than this presentation.
Are there any public comments on this presentation? Or any local public comments? No? Okay. Thank you, Peter. Exciting stuff.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, let's move on to our next agenda item then, which is the approval of the Community Advisory Committee work plan. And Vanessa is going to lead that discussion.
Yes, thank you all for your collaboration as we have worked together to put together a list of working group proposals. I'm just pulling it up on my screen right now. So yes, as you all saw in your packet today, we have brought back your ideas from our last conversation around working groups and topics. And we shared it with our staff. And they asked us to prioritize the 4 working groups that you see here. So I'll go through all of them quickly, and then we'll ask for your input if you want to modify or add anything. And then we'll ask you to finalize this list of working groups so that we can bring it to the board in May for their approval, and then hopefully get them started shortly after. So the first working group that we'd like to propose is around strategic planning for Peninsula Clean Energy. And so right now we are undergoing shortly we'll be undergoing our strategic planning process. And so this working group would collaborate with Shalini, our Chief Operating Officer, to help provide input on that planning process. Any questions on this working group?
Oh,
Is
Jason,
there a foundational document for that, or is there a previous strategic plan that we can look at before the next meeting?
Yeah, there's
There's a 2020 to 2025.
We already know that. We do this
It's on the
before.
website.
Yeah, we are renewing our strategic plan, or we are revising it. So I think this is a very exciting working group to weigh in on that process and support our new COO in strategic planning.
Vanessa Robert has a question.
I have to admit, I have not read the strategic plan, but I wonder, does it have objectives and goals and deliverables and all this stuff?
All of that.
If one were to get on that working group, would one be able to comment and have an impact on the objectives and all the rest?
Okay, so the previous strategic plan has all of that, but the new strategic plan is in the very beginning phases. I think we're just I think we just selected a contractor, like a consultant, to help us through the planning process. So the planning process is going to be happening over the next year.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
Short answer.
Yeah, I worked on that. Whoops.
What do you recommend?
Hey, see what we did last time. All right, never mind.
So the next working group that we'd like you all to consider is the Building Electrifications Program Working Group. And it would be similar to this past year's efforts, and we integrated some of the recommendations that the current year's group put in terms of action items and projects for next year. And so some of the activities would be to provide feedback on our upcoming programs for residential and government building electrification, and then help advise staff by researching barriers to building electrification and solutions and best practices. Great, I'll move on to the next working group, Transportation Electrification Programs. And so this one would be working with our colleagues on the program team, Carlos and Philip, to help really advise the development of our transportation programs. And so this one is pretty open-ended, but it would deal with electric vehicle charging infrastructures, and electric bicycles. And you could help us develop these programs and evaluate them and advise us on outreach methods. And then the last working group is with our marketing team. And so right now we are undergoing a brand strategy update and refresh. And so this working group would work with our team to advise us on any branding and programs marketing campaigns. So any questions or input, feedback?
Does this look exciting?
Seeing some nods in the room.
Yeah, Diane.
Just process question, for CAC members not here tonight?
Yeah.
Would they have an opportunity to like email you with their interest, or how would that work for them?
Yeah, so right now we're just asking you to approve these working groups. And then we would have you all sign up at the next meeting, which is ideally when we're going to appoint new members as well. And so we'll do all the signups when everyone's here.
Thank you.
Is there room for other working groups?
Yeah, we can, we would need to double check with staff. Is Peter still on the line?
I see.
There is some.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, I know there was some interest from the solar and storage working group. Is that what you were going to ask about, or?
Maybe, I don't know. I think
That's what I was
right.
gonna- oh.
Yeah, do you want to say more to that, Peter?
Yeah, so we got a lot of value out of this past iteration of the DER working group in particular. And it also is advice on how to stand up the next iteration of our programs. And so, the plan for staff over the next 6 to 12 months is to really focus in on program development and launch. Whereas, I think that the next time that the working group would provide really meaningful advice for our DER programs would be when we're still in like more of a brainstorming phase. So basically what I'm saying is we're just about to kick into gear on launching new programs. And again, that's largely based off of your advice and this, the synthesis of the programs that you guys have researched. And so when we're back to a more of a brainstorm phase and less of an execution phase, I think that would be the best time to re-engage. What do the folks who were on the DER working group think about that plan?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Peter, what's the status of, and forgive me if I've seen this and I'm blanking out, but there was gonna be a staff report. I mean, we submitted our report, which was, here's all the stuff we collected. And then you were also preparing a report to the board. Is that correct? Is that what we just saw? Or is there more to come on that? In terms of what the next programs would be? Is there more detail or is that the presentation that we just saw?
For the DER plan part 1?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that we have a staff report being generated that's going to the board this May. That speaks in large part in similar terms to what we presented here.
Okay, thank you.
Jason.
Well, I think, and Chris and I talked about this before the meeting too, I think it would be, and I want to hear from everybody else, I think it would be very it would be great if people that were passionate about doing this research were able to do it, like we wrote in our memo, beyond the scope of what we've done, knowing that it may go nowhere. But I think there are people that are passionate about looking into other things than just solar and storage in the DER space. And I think having a group that does that for the next year and follows up on that would be. I don't think it requires a staff person's time. I think it could be done in a small working group without the staff, if the staff time is not possible. But I think having read the report that at least the 4 or 5 of us in that group were into, and I know others have brought up before, it'd be fun to have a DER group that's still exploring other options for the next phase of the brainstorming. And maybe it only meets 4 times a year, maybe it only meets every other month. But I think that would be useful, since that's a pretty passionate group. I don't want to speak for them, so I want them to say if they agree or not. Because if not, then obviously we don't need to do it.
My only question about that is, does that meet the requirements for a working group? As I recall, Christian was describing, I think at the last meeting, kind of what constitutes a working group, and it has to be something where the staff is requesting input on something.
Well, I think we could request, I mean, that's what I'm suggesting, is because the board has to direct us, it has to be limited in scope, it has to have a deliverable. It has to be under the Brown Act number of people. And so I would say it's continuous, a group that researches other DER resources and other DER accomplishments, since they're continuing to evolve, and reports back in April on those discoveries to staff to use for the next brainstorming session.
Vanessa, do you want to?
Jennifer has a correction.
First paragraph there that talks about it's a chance for CAC members and staff to collaborate.
Yeah, and I see Jen has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a couple of points. It does need to be a time-limited group with a specific outcome goal. So those are kind of the other caveats for working groups.
So that is what you're proposing, but it looks like it, I mean, does it meet the criteria if it's not something that staff needs right now?
Well, it sounds like from what Peter said that staff might not be able to act on that research right now as they're in the implementation phase.
Right, that's what I meant.
Program.
So, but we've got a bunch of people that are interested in continuing the research, I guess, and it probably wouldn't be implemented until the following year. But anyway, I just wondered, to help clarify for the group that's interested, is it automatically nixed if the staff don't want to be a part of it right now? That's my question.
I also want to jump in and say that I more than welcome occasional meetings about DERs. I mean, I'll nerd out about DERs anytime folks want to jump on the horn. But no, really, like if there, I don't know what the formal structures entail here, but if you folks were to put together a group like this, and you were, and we had a few meetings throughout the year just to kind of summarize where your own where all your thoughts are landing on different DER topics, that is more than welcome.
I mean, I just looking at the report, there's the V2B pilot, the microgrid, there's the future looking things, and I think it'd be good to collect whatever's going on in that by next April. As those are future plans. Does anybody agree? I mean, if nobody wants to do this, then it's not worth mentioning, but I'm asking the people that did it before.
Yeah. So Kathleen and Michael, what do you think?
Gail, and Daniel's not here.
Oh, right, okay, she had to leave.
Not Gail, because she left, okay. No interest? We can also do it
It'd be
informally.
interesting continuing to work on it, but I don't want to be working on something that,
I want to give it a little more thought myself.
yeah, kind of want to
Okay.
think about it.
Then let's table it, and we can always. I'm assuming we can make a request the board, the working group, or approve one in the future.
Well, we asked the board to approve your working groups on an annual basis. So our plan is to bring the working group, your work plan for the next 12 months to the board to approve in May. So this is the time to decide what the working group list is.
It's now or never, Jason.
I'll just do some private work.
Sure.
Always make it an agenda item for our group as like a
Right.
committee member report.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a formal working group. I just want to do some research.
Thank you, Desiree, for reminding us of that.
Don't violate or anything, but you know, you can.
Right, should I ask for public comment? I guess I should. Is there any public comment about the working groups? No, okay, no, all right.
I have one more request or question for Vanessa specifically. You've had that education group for a long time.
Yep.
Is there anything specific you think that might come up in that space? Because I think it's important that we engage in all the schools from the kindergarten level through the college level, community college level around here. On that front, is there any discussion of a need for that in this next year? That's needs that would require a working group?
Yeah, we were thinking this year we could have more of those discussions on an informal basis. Daniel is not requesting reappointment to the CAC next year.
Okay.
And so because of he got a job outside of Los Banos, Daniel. And we would like to call on him and other stakeholders who might not be on the CAC. So definitely welcome anyone who's interested, your participation in that.
Okay, what else? Any other comments on the roster of working groups? Looks like we have 4.
I'm wondering if we could just maybe add a sentence that says to kind of encapsulate the education, the DER, the DEIA, which we've had in the past, just kind of saying that, you know, in addition to these working groups, that staff will reach out to CAC members ad hoc for discussions on these topics as needed, just to kind of keep those in there so that we don't forget them later. And also so that it's in front of the board, right? The board realizes those are still important to us, even though they're not formal working groups.
I think we can do that.
So
Make sure Jason gets it.
So we would just add a sentence to this proposal. Where should that go?
I'll switch to an editable version.
Okay.
We could just have it at the end, just to say exactly what Desiree just said.
Yeah, after the last group, just have a.
Because again, part of this is what confused when we got the agenda, because it says the CAC work plan. And so the working groups are part of the work plan, but I think including those other pieces as part of our strategic plan is a useful thing to do.
Yeah, so do you want to compose a sentence for the
I
bottom?
wanted to remember what Desiree just said. And say exactly the same
Or
way.
Desiree, you could say it, please.
In addition to the working group outlined here,
CAC want to continue to focus on DER, research and implementation, education.
The way you worded it initially was that the staff would reach out to.
Right.
yeah. As the staff, you can reach out to CAC on an ad hoc basis to discuss education, DER, DEAI,
That was
other topics as needed.
Does this doesn't leave any option for CAC members reaching out to staff, does
We
it?
always can do that.
I guess you know.
Well, yeah, maybe no. CAC encourages staff to reach out. Well, does that not suit your interests then, Michael? Because then, for instance, if you wanted to approach them with an AI idea, we haven't allowed for that in this document.
Well, Michael could just email me about an AI idea.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Jen, what do you think about this sentence here? Are you good with this?
Maybe instead of to discuss, if we need it to be more specific to kind of to solicit community input on, since we're like the community advisors.
Engage, so sorry.
I was
That's
thinking
good.
more about how to avoid serial meetings under the Brown Act. But we can do that. I don't think we have to describe that here.
Yeah, Kirsten, this is Jen. We can talk about how to prevent that in terms of the Brown Act. But I mean, I think the edits here don't necessarily lead to that, but it's possible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I move we do this. I don't know how we're doing it. It's not a resolution. I move that we endorse this proposal
Okay.
as constructed.
Yeah, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Robert, has seconded, all right. Roll call, please.
Daniel Barrowall, Diane Bailey, approved. Stephen Booker, Michael Clausen,
Approved.
Kathleen Goforth, approved. Melee Himuli, Aurelio Pizar, Gail Lee, Jason Mendelson,
Aye.
Cheryl Schaff,
Approve.
Desiree Thayer, approved. Robert Whitehair.
Approved.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Can I make a request? So I would recommend everybody do what I didn't do, which is research the existing things you can look up about these 4 topics, so you can choose what you want to do next time. And I will point out that Desiree and I and Michael did the last strategic plan with Morgan, which I'd forgotten in that working group, but I think we had a good time. But I think for the other ones, and also consider running these things, chairing them or volunteering to do so. And then obviously we're gonna wait and see what the new people next month want to do. And maybe let them pick first. I don't know how desperate we'll be with this. But we'll see.
Are we getting 5 new people? Is that right?
Do we know what's happening?
5 new people? Is that correct?
There are 3.
Oh, we don't really know that, huh?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
here. So
All right,
there are 4.
all right, all right, that's fine. Let's move on to our,
3 vacancies right now, though.
okay, let's move on to our next agenda item, which.
What's the full size of this? Committee?
15.
15?
15.
So that would be 4 more. There were 11 here tonight.
Yes. But some folks have.
Or 10, yeah.
Yeah, have the option of either re-upping or not, or requesting a
Right.
re-up or not. Okay, so let's go on to our marketing and community liaison update.
That'll be me again, and before I move, we just want to thank you so much for your dedication and enthusiasm for the working group. Kristen and I reviewed your deliverables, and it's, yeah, I think really a testament to all of your commitment to our mission, that you're, in addition to serving on the committee and being in these late night meetings, that you're volunteering to do even more, so thank you. So, yeah, on that note, wanted to thank the many CAC members who supported our Earth Day and Spring Outreach. And Melee, Desiree, Robert, and Kathleen, thank you all so much. And I know many of other you were running events or doing your other Earth Day and other outreach throughout the month, so thank you. We do have a exciting event on May 18th, San Carlos Hometown Day. And we are expecting that'll be a busy event, so we're looking for anyone else who's available to come out to support us. Kathleen will be there, thank you. And so the time that we're hoping to find extra support for is from 1:30 to 6 p.m. And again, that's on Saturday, May 18th.
It's a very fun event. Come early, watch the people.
That is the San Carlos Hometown Day from 1:30 to 6 p.m. on May 18th.
So it's not an Earth Day thing,
No,
really?
this is just a San Carlos tradition.
Okay.
It's kind of it's just a fun
Festival.
thing that San Carlos does to celebrate itself every year.
Okay, okay.
I might be able to help out.
Thank you, Diane.
Fantastic. That's great. Anyone else?
And yeah, check your schedules and let us know. And yeah, really appreciate your support. Couldn't we've covered a lot of events and couldn't do it without you all. So my last update is pertaining to the minutes for the CAC. And so as an organization, all of the public meetings are going to shift their minutes towards action minutes. And so what that is, it's a streamlined document that focuses on the actions taken. And so we won't be including the questions and the responses in the minutes. What we will be doing instead is linking, recording, and putting the recordings online, where there will be a transcript for members of the public to review. And one of the reasons is that it will take the subjectivity out of minute writing. And I think that's especially relevant for our board meetings where the discussions can be quite lengthy and sometimes like choosing what or not to include can be difficult. And so just having the recording there and the transcript is a more accurate.
Is that automated transcription?
I'm sorry?
There'll be an automated audio transcription?
Yeah, so I wanted to give a heads up that that'll be implemented for the CAC as well.
Starting next month?
Starting with the minutes from this meeting.
Oh, okay.
Can I, maybe Jennifer can answer this, are we to review that when we do our approval of the consent calendar then? Are we gonna get a full transcription for our minutes?
Oh, so no, the minutes itself will be
just action
just
items.
on the action.
Yeah.
And then on each of the items, it'll link to the specific part in the recording and the transcript for people to review, but we wouldn't
But our
expect that.
diligence will require us to have reviewed the transcript. And
Yes.
approve the minutes, okay.
Yeah.
Correct, right.
Thank you.
Just keep in mind that these meetings are recorded on the Zoom and that and they will be posted for perpetuity. So just keep that in mind. Perpetuity in public. Vanessa and I were joking around. We're like, have to make sure we brush our hair and so on. So but yeah, just keep that in mind.
1,000 years.
Okay, that
All right.
concludes my report.
That
Thank
concludes
you.
your report. Okay. Upcoming topics for discussion is our next topic. And Kirsten, are you gonna lead that one?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, great. So upcoming topics at the board are things you pretty much heard today. So let's see, May board meeting. There will be a review of the Community Advisory Committee deliverables and the work plan for next year. I'm also going to be doing a DEI progress update, which I know you all had requested to bring today, but there were other more timely issues that are coming as action items before the board. That's just an update. So I'm happy to bring the same update to you all later, but there just wasn't time in the agenda today. Let's see what else is on the board. Then the customer service center plans, which you heard about from Leslie today, and the discussion of the DR plan, which you heard about from Peter today. So that's what's coming up. So in terms of what you'd like to discuss at your June meeting,
Kirsten,
yeah.
the item that we talked about tonight, the resolution, when will that come to the board?
Oh, yeah. So we'll ask Cheryl to read that during her CEO report to the board, and then we'll actually attach it the language to that in the agenda packet under the CAC chair.
In May. In May.
In May, yeah. That's the plan.
And then another quick thing, Cheryl will also, you'll be available to answer questions from the memos. So you may want to talk to the board.
Okay. You guys could show up the deliverables for the work groups.
So is it Jennifer?
In case they have questions.
Jennifer, can Cheryl speak to the 5 working group chairs offline to prepare for that? Is that okay, Brown Act wise?
So is that a conversation between 2 people or 5 people, or what's the schematic there?
It'd be 2 people, it'd be Cheryl and the person who is the author of the memo. So she
Yeah,
can answer questions.
That's permissible. Yeah, that's permissible. As long as that information isn't transmitted to other members of the committee in a serial meeting. So just as long as that information is kept semi-confidential or not transmitted to other members of the.
Okay, cool. There, you get that to do. Have fun.
When you're chair of three of them.
I know, I hope you.
Okay.
Yeah. So thinking ahead to the June meeting, if all goes well, we may have some new CAC members joining us. And so it's always nice to do some really good in-depth introductions and share a little bit about ourselves. I could do a DI review.
June.
What else would you like to do in June?
Working groups, like you said.
Oh yeah, sign up for working groups, of course, thank you. Sign up for working groups.
Do you want to do the DEIA progress update at the June meeting too?
Yeah. And then how about a Brown Act training?
The first day
Yes,
that
Brown Act
first day
training.
that they come in?
Yeah.
We want to keep them.
All right.
How long is that? Is that a half an hour or?
Jen, you've done them in half an hour.
Yeah, we can keep it to a half an hour for sure. More than a half an hour, the Brown Act is not humane.
Okay, great.
Kirsten, we're also getting close to the fiscal year. Is there going to be some budget related? We could preview.
Yeah. Let's see. Budget. Let me there will be budget review. All right. That is a good list of potential items. Anything else?
I think that's enough.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. All right. Let's see. Was there any public comment on things this group might want to discuss in the future? Okay, great. Any committee member want to make a report tonight on anything? Okay, go ahead.
And I know it's late. Okay, so we finally cut off our gas service to our house. Yay. Oh my God, yeah. We've asked me for a while, but finally it took, I think, 9 months with PG&E, but anyway. Kathleen had prepped me for the ordeal that it was gonna be, but that wasn't preparation enough. It was like 3 trucks closing off the road. Oh my God. I don't know how that scales, and I just wanted to note that, but we're very happy about the gas line. They cut it at the service main under the road. Okay, enough about that. I also wanted to give a virtual award to Vanessa for being the best on the fly note taker, because you've been doing this for so long and so well.
Very good at your job.
Yes.
We appreciate you.
Try to keep up with all of you.
5 guys, 10 trucks. Is that it?
No, 3 trucks.
All right, any other committee members report? All right, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Here.
Good night.
Good night, thanks.